Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that the US taking over Greenland would be the end of the world as we know it. This comes as Warsaw announced it will not be sending its soldiers to the autonomous territory of Denmark, while several European countries are deploying troops there amid tensions between Europe and Washington.
Danish troops disembark in Greenland. They're being deployed to boost security on the Arctic island. They'll be joined by brothers-in-arms from Finland, Sweden, Norway, Germany and France, who have rallied in the face of threats by US President Donald Trump to take control of the Danish territory by force. France's foreign minister says NATO's European allies
are completely capable of defending their territory against any threat, wherever it may come from.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk says Poland will not be sending soldiers to Greenland. He was explicit about the consequences of American military action over the Danish territory.
A conflict or an attempt to take over the territory of a country that is a NATO member by another NATO member, and what's more, if it's the United States, that would be the end of the world as we know it.
And what's emerging as a crisis for Europe, a forced US takeover of Greenland, is not backed in the States. A Reuters poll found only 4% of Americans said it would be a good idea to use military might. US Senator Mitch McConnell warned that military action would incinerate the trust of allies.
And until the president can demonstrate otherwise, then the proposition at hand today is pretty straightforward. Incinerating the hard-won trust of loyal allies in exchange for no meaningful change.
Analysts agree there's no benefit to America acquiring control of Greenland.
You have the Danish, the Greenlandic, the European side, and I suspect many people in the US system who understand perfectly well that there's no geostrategic, military or economic reason for this. And then you have President Trump on the other side.
After a crunch White House summit on Wednesday between the Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President J.D. Vance, Donald Trump repeated his demands over Greenland on the grounds of national security, but this time appeared to soften his position, possibly suggesting a deal could be done.
I have a very good relationship with Denmark, and we'll see how it all works out. I think something will work out. Yep.
Copenhagen and Washington have now agreed to form a working group to discuss concerns about the island. John Todd for TVP World.
Speaking to TVP World, former US Ambassador to Poland Jan Brzezinski delivered remarks on Trump's push towards the acquisition of Greenland. In his comments, the former ambassador claimed Trump's current actions form a radical shift, undermining decades of established US foreign policy.
Trump's national security policy, that is a break from 8 decades of US national security policy, is that this administration, this president does not believe the United States has vital interests in Europe worth defending with the lives of our soldiers. The same applies for the Indo-Pacific. And with that comes a break from a second corollary of American national security policy, and that is a belief in the need to defend forward US interests through the deployment of US forces, robust deployments of US forces abroad, in Europe, in Japan, in Korea. So we're seeing a retraction from those two enduring principles.
Heightened tensions in the Middle East have prompted the US military to redirect a carrier strike group from the South China Sea to the region and to take diplomatic precautions as regional powers prepare for the possibility of an escalation involving Iran. The carrier strike group is expected to arrive in the Middle East in approximately 1 week, according to multiple reports released on Wednesday. Tension in the region led to significant diplomatic measures, with the British Foreign Office confirming on Wednesday the temporary closure of its embassy in Tehran and a shift to remote operations. On the same day, Spain's foreign ministry issued an urgent advisory recommending all Spanish citizens currently in Iran to leave the country as soon as possible. Multiple airlines have altered normal operations by rerouting flights to avoid Iranian and Iraqi airspace and restricting services to Tel Aviv and Amman. Now, Poland has summoned Iran's ambassador amid escalating unrest in the Islamic Republic, citing grave concerns over Tehran's response to nationwide protests. Warsaw urged Iranian authorities to halt the use of force against demonstrators and to pursue dialogue, warning that the rising number of deaths and arrests is deeply alarming.
Based on its own historical experience, Poland is certain that violence against freedom of speech, association, or peaceful demonstrations is unacceptable and is not an effective means of achieving political goals. Recognizing the value of the special historical Polish-Iranian relationship, Poland hopes for dialogue between the Iranian authorities and the protesters to begin as soon as possible.
In Ukraine, millions have been left without power, heating and running water after a series of Russian strikes on the country's civilian infrastructure. This happens as temperatures have plummeted to their lowest levels in the past 10 years.
The Russian attacks have left as much as 70% of Kiev's population without power and, in many cases, also without heating and running water. As Ukraine is experiencing its coldest winter in 10 years, with temperatures regularly as low as minus 15 degrees Celsius, Kiev's residents are struggling to cope with the conditions. Last week, Kiev's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, even went as far as controversially recommending that people temporarily leave the capital while repair workers tried to restore power to the embattled city.
I am addressing the residents of the capital. If you have the opportunity to temporarily leave the city for areas where there are alternative sources of power and heating, please do so.
Since that message, Russia has continued to target Ukraine's electricity infrastructure. The situation has got so bad that some Kiev residents are taking the mayor's advice and temporarily leaving the city.
My apartment is completely dependent on electricity. If there is no power, there is nothing. No light, no heating, no hot water, nothing. So it was very cold, and due to the extreme weather, due to, of course, firstly, Russian strikes and combination with extreme weather, it's just impossible to live there. And I made this hard decision for me to move first in the hotel, and then I decided to move to Lviv.
The local authorities have responded by setting up heated tents around the city, dubbed resilience centres, to provide temporary shelter for those struggling to heat their homes. But as temperatures are expected to stay well below freezing for at least the rest of the month, many more residents, like Diana, are considering temporary evacuation from Kiev as the humanitarian situation across the country continues to deteriorate. I'm Oz Kataji, reporting from Kiev for TVP World.
Poland will be sending additional MiG fighter jets to Ukraine. Speaking to Adam Jasser on TVP World's On the Record, Poland's Deputy Defense Minister Paweł Zalewski has revealed that the first batch will likely include less than 10 of this type of aircraft.
The decision has been made. We are waiting for the answer of Ukrainian side, Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. Discussions are just ongoing.
But these are like technical discussions?
It is completely technical discussion.
So the decision is there. Poland will deliver those MiGs
absolutely, and I believe also that is what I understand, that Ukrainians made a decision to accept this offer. But of course, there are some technical aspects which
secret,
shall be
probably.
Which shall be clarified, as always.
Including the number of these jets?
I can confirm that will be some of the.
Okay, less than 10 or?
Less than 10.
US President Donald Trump has received the Nobel Peace Prize, except not in the way many have expected. Venezuela's opposition leader Maria Corina Machado presented her prize to US President during a meeting at the White House. Trump hosted the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Machado despite having already dismissed her credibility to run Venezuela following a US military raid that seized the then-president Nicolás Maduro. Trump later thanked Machado in a social media post. Speaking to reporters, Machado cited Simón Bolívar, the South American fighter who led the struggle for freedom against the Spanish 2 centuries ago. She said her gift was in recognition of Trump's commitment to freedom.
I told him this, listen to this. 200 years ago, General Lafayette gave Simón Bolívar a medal with George Washington's face on it. Bolívar since then kept that medal for the rest of his life. Actually, when you see his portraits, you can see the medal there. And it was given by General Lafayette as a sign of the brotherhood between the United States, people of the United States and the people of Venezuela in their fight for freedom against tyranny. And 200 years in history, the people of Bolívar are giving back to the heir of Washington a medal, in this case a medal of the Nobel Peace Prize, as a recognition for his unique commitment with our freedom.
The National Bank of Poland is going to ramp up its investments in gold. When the purchases, which have just been announced for 2026, are completed, Poland will be among 10 countries in the world with the largest gold deposits.
As gold prices reach a historic high, the National Bank of Poland, the world's leading buyer of gold among central banks last year, is set to continue its spending spree.
I intend to submit a motion to the Management Board of the National Bank of Poland to adopt a resolution increasing our country's gold reserves to 700 tons.
Valued at $76.5 billion, the National Bank of Poland currently holds the 12th largest gold reserves in the world. If the governor's plan is implemented, Poland would advance into the global top 10. Expanding national gold reserves has become Governor Adam Glapiński's hallmark policy. Since he took the helm of the central bank in 2016, Poland's gold holdings have risen more than fivefold. He claims the move, which contributed to the rise in value of the reserves, has been an important factor in ensuring the stability of the Polish zloty.
Our total reserve assets, gold and foreign currency, now stand at 976.5 billion zloty, or $269 billion, placing us among the world's top 20 central banks. Given our geographic position, economic conditions, and our own national currency, the zloty, this framework provides strong support for the currency, whose stability remains firm and unquestioned.
Strong demand from central banks and investors has driven the price of gold up to record levels. On Wednesday, the value of the bullion peaked at $4,641 per ounce.
A rather unexpected incident took place in the post city of Olsztyn on Wednesday. A herd of wild boars barged onto the tram tracks and refused to move, effectively paralyzing 2 lines for nearly half an hour.
The herd, tightly huddled together in the middle of the track, was quite determined not to budge. The boars were eventually persuaded to move, and the service resumed shortly after. No one was hurt in the incident, but local authorities warn residents not to interact with any boars found wandering around the city.
And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World.